Hey, welcome to Hear Us Out. I'm Paul,
And I'm Patrick.
and we're going to be talking about Charred Studios. Since we were talking about Iron Lung and Markiplier's, which could venture into the creation of movies, we were talking about the coming of the streamer back studios and stuff. So here we are, right there. So to the
It didn't take
original,
long.
not at all. So the original video is up in the corner there in the little tag section, which goes, so yeah, let's jump right into it. So, Charge Studio.
Well, Paul, I always say I'm always fascinated by the idea that people sometimes overlook the fact that money is what the whole industry is about. We're all into the art, into the beauty, into the emotion, the storytelling. But when there's money, people go digging for more. And like you say, we talked about this before. I think the big thing was what Markiplier proved wasn't just, hey, famous internet celebrity, let's call him, or internet famous makes money in movie. No, it's the right people doing the right things at the right time. It's a lot of hard work. It's not a matter of clicking fingers. But there were going to be people who go looking. Now, I thought it was going to be studios trying to find people to team up with. I'm really excited, Paul, that it's better than that in one way. It's
Yeah.
somebody who has an industry background of, journalism in this space, presenter in this space, is an online personality. And I think the clever thing that they've done is go, I understand that the YouTubers and streamers and influencers, for lack of a better word, have a creative side and also have money now. So instead of just looking to investors, I can start using creative people who also want to invest. It's a
Yeah.
real Steven Seagal under siege. I also cook. They also have money. So I don't think this is going to change Hollywood in the sense of forget blockbusters, forget the current studio system. But I think this will be the new spoke that we talked about. It'll be that new train, that new track.
Yeah. So this is the thing. Yeah. So the Alanah Pearce has created Charge Studios, and yeah, the idea is to kind of use streamers and YouTubers as the venture capitalists that we would see that studios or other people getting invested in it. It's an interesting kind of like just what is it? A Quiet Place, because A Quiet Place was done by John Krasinski, which is and a few others. Um, that's a good kind of thing of like having a well-known Hollywood person create movie. This is essentially the like is reclaiming Markiplier. Essentially, what he did was reclaimed that mid-tier movie opening that we have talked about before, which is the 2 to 15 million budget
Yeah.
movie that works around essentially the restrictions and stuff, and sometimes to a to betterment kind of thing. Um,
And can I piggyback on, I'm sorry to break your flow, but just you said something so important there. When we talked about that before, we referred to it as like, the death of DVD killed that
mm,
because that was the budget where you could go make a little more and then DVDs long term were going to be part of your financial strategy. What's replaced DVD in this case is that these people and personalities stand to gain in the long run from more exposure because unlike behind the curtain, venture capitalist or investor, being part of this, whatever they get out of that first, 5 to 12 million, that pays them back long term in another way of being, more notoriety essentially. So it's a really exciting time to see something come along and make a difference in what was just a dead spot.
yeah, this is yeah. So this is the interesting part, yeah, because it's essentially reclaiming that myth like estate, and as you said, the investment return isn't as much on the financial as it is on the influence and the content that can be created from it. The second actual part that also helps with essentially getting these new like streamer venture capitalist groups involved in these projects is the fact is that so with Charge Studio specifically they are making movies based on game IPs, which means that they're already
Yeah.
fans of the IPs themselves. They're the ones that you're kind of so you probably will see major streamers who have either like you know Among Us. If they were to do a film about Among Us, major streamers who have built their platforms on Among Us would probably get involved in the project. They would go to
Yeah.
those like Disguised Toast, who built a massive following based on Among Us platform, he would probably be, approached and be just like, "Hey, we're making a movie about Among Us. We would like you to get involved." And
Mm.
it's like it's brand recognition to have him involved in the Among Us movie, kind of thing. So that's what they're doing
Yeah.
essentially with I think it's Faith, and I don't know what the other one is. I think the Faith game is one of them that's been
Yeah,
currently
and there'll
worked
be
on.
more and more coming online as
Yeah,
this grows. But Paul, to your point, and there's the thing: how many times has an IP been bought, let's say, or it's been owned by for a long time behind the scenes by Warner Brothers, whoever else, and then they're bringing it to life, and the fandom are all nervous because they don't know which way things are going. Let's just create a fake game in our head. Rabbit X. Rabbit X is this fake game just for the sake of this conversation. Imagine that exists. It's an indie game that gains some notoriety. It has let's say, a decent enough following that there are streamers, YouTubers who are playing it and they're doing let's plays and they're doing content about it and they're doing, expansions, etc. You're growing a fan base of, let's say, 3 million people.
hmm
Okay? 3 million people. Doesn't
yeah,
sound like you're going to end the world of movie making with 3 million as your audience. Here's the thing. If you take the most prominent people who are online playing that game and keeping that community alive and fed and are such an integral part of it, they understand that IP and its fans better than anyone else. Because make no mistake, folks, YouTubers and streamers, they don't just do it out of some sort of like, oh yeah, I'm just going to do whatever, man. They will look at what people want to see. They will engage with audiences and listen because they have to, or else they will not make progress in their space. So, by definition, these are the right people to be involved in bringing the beloved thing to life. So you've closed that gap between owner and fan base, or the let's say creator
IP.
or the person who's getting to make the movie for the IP and the fan base. So you make your movie for $4 million and you make, it sells well, you do well, and you make 20 at the box office.
Yeah,
More than that, you're then the streamer or YouTuber or game commentator who was the one that has that fan base with them. You've done the movie, they've got to see it. It's brought more people to it. It's increased your pool of people that you can, like, the benefits are circular. It feeds itself. And that sort of recycling of an recycling economy like that, when you can
yeah.
grow and then feed it back in, that's the business dream. So even the things that will seem like flops to, snooty movie nerds like me,
Yeah.
if people look closely, the last thing they'll be is flops. If they can cover costs on a movie, it's not a flop.
Yeah, see, that's the interesting because so like since Hollywood has been known to butcher essentially adaptations of movies because they're using essentially
Really? I hadn't noticed.
yeah because they're using the mechanics of essentially of movie making, to to essentially recreate the feeling that we had while playing the game. It's kind of this interesting kind of aspect of it. But with Charred Studios specifically, and also probably setting essentially the blueprints for moving forward, they're getting the devs involved as well as fans of the movie. So not only are they getting fans, as you say, who have built a platform on this specific IP, they are also getting the devs involved, which means it's just like you're like the whole like ecosystem that you're talking about, like is actually essentially now the original builders working with fans of the move or of the IP to
Mm.
create a new medium for it. Like, to put it in another way, all we're getting is essentially an extended cutscene of essentially the full on movie built by the creators and people who love it. So it is a fantastic thing. It also does make this a little bit more authentic, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's the creator fan base building something together, which is a it's a great story to tell. It's a great marketing kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but this also changes then the marketing scheme, which, as we say, because so Markiplier's Iron Lung didn't use traditional marketing methods as much. They did release a trailer, But it was a good majority of word of mouth. It was
Yeah.
there was, of course, articles, and because the story surrounding it made it also very much interesting, and also kind of built like a market kind of element.
Yeah.
The first movie that Charred Studio and studios that are going to come up like it create is going to also generate traditional media marketing essentially around it, not done by them.
Yeah.
Once again, they're going to start doing word of mouth, which is and it will also prove that word of mouth is pretty much one of the biggest, because like if I went to you, if I saw the movie or knew that the movie was being made, and like a movie that was being made, I would go to you and be just like, "Hey, this movie's going to be made. It looks great. I know the
Yeah.
IP. It's really cool. I'm someone you trust, so you're going to be like, well, I
Yeah.
trust Paul. So, and I like that some of the stuff that he's talked to me before about has been really good. So I'm going to trust him, and I'm going to go watch that movie. Like it really changes the field of play from essentially what is gatekeepers to movie making, kind of thing.
And opens opportunities for people all across the board in different ways. Because, okay, Paul, quickly, I'm going to give you some of the dangers that I see as to how this can easily and quickly go wrong.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about the good stuff. The things that will kill this, well, the one thing that will kill this as an overarching thing is greed. So you can't have 52 of these things a year. That's not going to work. You gotta, you can't flood the zone. And if another six studios open up and start like this, and everybody thinks that they can do it, then the market will eat itself, and nobody will succeed. The opportunities of having, I'm going to put simply, and I intend no offense to anybody who's related to a TV actor, but there are TV actors who can't get breaks in film but have, hiatuses and times in their shooting schedule where they could go and do a small indie film. And they do tend to go and do those indie films. Now, they might start doing some of these movies. So you might find that there'll be more, I'm going to just say household names or more familiar faces being cast in some of these projects because there's new opportunities for them with this sort of studio that will not conflict with any of their other contracts. Then back to the bad. You've got the cinemas themselves.
Hmm.
Cinemas have to realize that these things are, we're going to have them in our theaters for 3 weeks. Some of these are going to be, short release, but you have to give them a chance when they're there, not put them in screen Z or screen 59.
Hmm.
You can't just go, well, this is our little thing. Give them a chance while they're there. Because I think the streamers, like the actual, when I say streamers, I think like Amazon Prime, Disney
Yeah.
Plus, HBO. I think they're going to very quickly. I'll be interested to see what deals are made there. Because if you can get into a cinema for 3 weeks, have your box office that covers your costs, and we've got Netflix that always needs more content and loves having things that were in a cinema at some point. Like the financial model works as long as nobody gets too greedy at any time. At the very first thing, don't make 100 of these and just flood the market. Don't have 20 different people copy this formula and ruin a thing before it gets off the ground. Don't have cinemas treat this like it's an inconvenience because it could be their lifeblood.
Yeah.
You get 10 of these a year or 8 of these a year, you're looking at filling bums, you're putting bums on seats that could be the difference between a cinema making it and not making it at very little cost to them. So don't mess it up. And then it is how much money shows up from that last part. How much money shows up from the Amazon Primes or others to say, okay, exclusively everything goes to us, and then they start dictating terms and maybe don't understand what they've got.
Yeah, so this is the interesting thing. So I would like to go back to some of the gatekeeper parts, but I definitely agree that going to this part is very important. So there's a couple of things we've already seen. Already seen that finance news for movies have already said how sustainable is the which goes I guess
The
business
theatrical
model.
model. Yeah.
The business model of essentially going to YouTubers and going, I need
Mm.
this amount of money, kind of thing. Because the for two reasons. One, like, is it sustainable that we're going to have like people like Markiplier or massive names who've made money off the like who've made enough money to be able to be involved in the projects multiple times, as you say, with maybe multiple types of studios like this. And the second thing is like when you have a large amount of people buying into essentially a project like this, are you going to have people then dictating from that side before you even get to the streamers? If you have multiple YouTubers and streamers involved in the project, are they going to start trying to turn it into a vanity project, kind of thing? It's like, well, I've
Yeah.
put in the most amount, I should get the most
Yeah.
say on these kind of things. That's a concern as well, and you'd hope that you control it.
Sure.
The other concern is, yes, the streamers. Like the reason that certain studios do the thing, have to use the mechanics of traditional Hollywood's like creation, is the fact is that they have streaming services essentially down their neck, going like, you have to
I
do it
need
this
wide
way, and you
appeal.
have to, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that scene is great. It's great. Loads of people love it, but it makes no sense in the plot. Yeah, but we need it in because it really goes with other, like, yeah, it brings in
We're
more
going for
audiences.
four quadrant. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
kind of thing.
What mass appeal stuff.
So there is dangers here. But to kind of bring it back to a final, I guess, to a little bit of a final note. If Markiplier's Iron Lung was lightning in a bottle, Charge Studio is the infrastructure of remaking that, which
Yeah.
is a really interesting turn of events, because
Mm,
we've all talked about how there's been a bit of blockbuster fatigue with
yeah.
comic. We first started it with comic book fatigue. Comic book movies were
Yeah.
fatiguing us a little bit. Then big blockbusters that just weren't bringing us. Ryan Gosling has said that Hollywood's duty is to make movies that bring people into the cinema. We've seen Markiplier's Iron Lung do that.
Yeah.
Is so I guess so like, yeah, this is showing essentially infrastructure being put in place. But my final question, and to you, and I know we don't have a lot of time, is this the start of the mid-budget renaissance? Is this the first steps towards the possibility of reclaiming that estate as essentially a safe creative
Yeah.
element? Like, yes, we have indie films currently, but the
Mm,
problem is that you will find big backers with those, like,
yeah.
still, you know?
And look, A24 and Neon are changing the game for how people view indies. I'm going to give you that awful answer of yes and no. I don't think it's going to replace or recreate the mid budget. What I think it's going to do is occupy some of that space. And I think the thing that we haven't mentioned, and we're not going to go into it in depth, but if I had one thing to say to everybody involved, all the way from the top to the bottom and the middle and the sides, theaters, etc., look at what you've done by not meddling too much with horror. The horror space has kept cinema and entertainment very comfortably going
Yeah.
when other things have waned and risen. This isn't that, but it can be a parallel track to that. It's going to be boutique. Do not try and make it into something it is not. Keep boutique industries boutique. They will survive forever. If you don't know what you have, don't go trying to make it into something else. That's the danger. So, do I think it will? I think it's much like horror has kept going and shown everybody. I think this is going to be another track. And I hope then somebody finds a way to bring back, romantic comedies and teen comedy movies and all that, all the other that we've lost as part of that mid-budget group.
Yeah.
Um, I think this could be it's either going to be something we talk about in a couple of years of, do you remember there was a chance and then they killed it?
Yeah.
Or we'll be talking about it going, look, that was one of those things that's led to this now. And we'll be talking about the next spoke or the next track that's filling that void. I hope it's the latter, Paul, but I fear the former.
Yeah, well, it's always going to be a difficult kind of like this is new territory for a lot of things, so
Yeah.
it's going to be an interesting one. And I do agree. I do think that the cult factor, leaning into the cult movie factor, is very important for these guys.
Yeah.
Um,
Allow fans to be fans. They will help you.
which is, yeah. So, what do you guys think of that? Do you think that this is the start of essentially a? Do you think it's the start of kind of like, this reclaim of the mid level kind of budgetary movie estate? Are you excited? Do you think that there's going to be more of these? There's so many questions. Patrick, do you
Yeah.
have anything?
No, just let us know if you think that we're actually overhyping this or not, because I think it could be a lot bigger than people realize. Let us know if you agree. Yeah. And
Cool.
I guess, Paul, with that, I've been Patrick,
I've been Paul, and we've
and we've
been
been
Gear.
here aside, and we'll see you next time.